What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of I Really Don't Enjoy Having to Make Difficult Decisions. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we are going to be talking about the NBA MVP race. At the time of this recording, the NBA season is like 85% of the way over. Every team has played more than 60 games. There's only like a month or so, about 5 weeks, until the playoffs begin, and the MVP race has been whittled down to five people: Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Jayson Tatum, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. All of them do have a case to be the NBA MVP. I'm not picking Nikola Jokic right now, but I think that Jokic is going to wind up winning another MVP. We're going to start with the Kia MVP ladder, which was last published on NBA.com on March 9th. They have Nikola Jokic in their number one spot, averaging 26 points, 12 rebounds, 9.2 assists. According to Michael C. Wright, his case is this: he dropped a 32-point triple-double against the Celtics on Thursday to move within a game of the Western Conference lead and punctuated the performance with a spinning dime. He notched his 51st double-double on Tuesday in a loss to Phoenix. Even still, the Nuggets are 7-1 since the All-Star break. Moving on to number two, SGA. His season numbers about 31 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists. According to Michael C. Wright, his case is this: the Thunder star picked up his career-high 46th game with 30 points or more this season in Wednesday's win at Portland to cap a 4-game road trip. He's now only one game short of the OKC franchise record for 30-point games, reached twice by Kevin Durant. Number three is Giannis, averaging about 31 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. Antetokounmpo returned to the lineup Wednesday after sitting out Monday due to left Achilles tendonitis, but even the two-time MVP couldn't help the Bucks in a 125-90 loss to Golden State. The 29-year-old scored 23 points with 7 boards and 6 assists. Still, the Warriors manhandled the bigger Bucks in the paint, out-rebounding them 50-36, while outscoring them 54-36 in that area. Additionally, rookie Trace Jackson Davis flat out gave Antetokounmpo fits. Number four, Jayson Tatum, averaging just shy of 27 points, about 8.5 rebounds, and a little under 5 assists. His case: the NBA's longest winning streak ended Tuesday at Cleveland in a game in which Tatum scored 2 points in the fourth quarter. The trio of Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis combined for 64 points in the first three quarters before totaling 7 in the final frame. They entered leading by 16. The Celtics followed with a loss Thursday at Denver in a potential finals preview. They've dropped 2 straight for the first time since early November. Rounding out the list is Luka Doncic, averaging about 34.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, and just under 10 assists. He started the week winning Kia NBA Western Conference Player of the Month for the fourth time in his career. Doncic is just 2 Player of the Month awards away from catching Hall of Fame Dirk Nowitzki's career total, which was 6. Still, individual brilliance hasn't translated into team success for the 8th place Mavs. The 25-year-old joined Russell Westbrook as the only players in NBA history to log 5 straight 30-plus point triple-doubles as he reached that mark in a Thursday win versus Miami. I think he also set the record for most 35-point triple-doubles at 4 in a row. Do not quote me on that. I'm just going to come out and say that the only issue I take with this list is Jayson Tatum being above Luka Doncic. But again, I see where that rationale comes from. Jayson Tatum, even though statistically he is the worst of these 5 candidates, his case is him being the best player on the best team, which I think is a very valid case when discussing MVP. Let's go ahead and start with the elephant in the room, which is Jayson Tatum. To me, Jayson Tatum is 5th on the MVP ladder. To a degree, I think he suffers from his success with the Boston Celtics because the Celtics are, I think, by 5 games the best team in the NBA. They have built a perfect basketball team. They have no flaws. They are electrifying on offense. They are stifling on defense. They have 6 guys who can all give you 30 plus minutes in a finals game and contribute actual meaningful production on both ends of the floor. This hinders Tatum because he doesn't have to put on a show like Luka does. He doesn't have to put on like Giannis has been doing. He doesn't have to put on like Nikola Jokic. Tatum just does not have to consistently do that night after night. The Celtics can win a game when he gets 40 points, and they can win a game when he gets 8 points. I will say the one thing that I take issue with how the NBA presents their race to the MVP is that the case, and I know it's done on a week by week basis, but I don't think that the narrative week by week should change that much because the Celtics ass blasted Golden State by 50 points and then blew a 20-point lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, they mentioned that in the article, they mentioned that with the Milwaukee Bucks, but I feel that the narrative portion of the NBA MVP race, which is often critical to who people vote for, should encapsulate the entire season. You shouldn't be using that loss to Cleveland to besmirch Jayson Tatum's resume this year when the Celtics have pretty far and away been the most dominant team across the entirety of the campaign. But I went ahead and I pulled up, as you can see, it's just like floating here. I went ahead and I pulled up everyone's statistics. This is totals, points per game, advanced, all that courtesy of basketball reference. Tatum, just statistically, does not compare to anybody on this list. He is second lowest in terms of point per game. He's averaging the second fewest rebounds. He's averaging the fewest assists. He is the least efficient player on this table in terms of both overall field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage. This is not to say that Jayson Tatum is not an MVP caliber player. It's just to say that he is a little bit below everybody else. I feel that this is a four-player MVP race. I think that Jayson Tatum is going to get some consideration again because of where he is with the Boston Celtics, but I would not be voting for him. He will not be in my top three. Let's go ahead and discuss Luka Doncic, who has the best statistical profile here, just in terms of raw counting stats. He leads everybody in points per game. He leads in assists per game. He is third in rebounds per game. His efficiency has skyrocketed this season. He is at a shade under 50% from the field, which is much attributed to his improved three-point shooting. But the biggest knock against him is the Mavericks are currently the eighth seed in the Western Conference. They're, I think, 9 games above 500, and they have the worst record amongst these 5 teams. Denver is a half game back of first place in the West at the time of this recording. OKC is atop the Western Conference, and then, of course, Boston and Milwaukee, respectively, are the top 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference. Where I think Luka is going to earn a majority of his votes in this race is the argument of what happens if you take Luka off of this Mavericks team. And they would be probably an 8-win squad. That's how much he contributes to Dallas. However, that's not necessarily a sound argument because if you take any MVP caliber player off of their team, with probably the exception of Jayson Tatum this year, that team is going to take a significant hit. Doesn't matter if it's the Nuggets, it doesn't matter if it's the Bucks. It's going to be to a different degree because some of these teams are better than others, but I don't really find that to be a valid argument because these guys are MVPs for a reason. So that combined with his statistical dominance is probably going to be what the voters look at. We have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There was a little bit of a media push regarding Shai, consistent posts about him and his scoring on ESPN, on all of the major platforms. His numbers are, I don't want to say they're similar to Tatum's, but him and Tatum are both the, I don't like I hate to say the worst performers, the worst statistical performers on this list, but their numbers don't necessarily jump out at you when put up next to Luka Doncic, when put up against Giannis, and when put up against Nikola Jokic. That's not to say that SGA doesn't deserve to be an MVP finalist. I mean, he's having a career year in terms of scoring, spectacular efficiency. He trails only Luka among these 5 players, is also leading the NBA in steals still, which has been something that he's done for the entirety of the season. Just his disruptiveness on both ends of the floor. I think that his narrative is probably the most compelling, being the superstar on this ridiculously young Thunder team who have no business being as good as they are right now. And the Thunder look as good as they do because they are carried by SGA. Obviously, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, these guys contribute as well, but the Thunder are not first place in the Western Conference if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't there. I mean, he's been remarkable this season. There's no other way to categorize it. Arguably the two most dominant players in the NBA right now, Giannis and Jokic. Giannis over the last couple of months has once again taken control of Milwaukee. I know he said at some point earlier in this season that the Bucks were Damian Lillard's team. Nobody believed it. The Bucks belong to Giannis, and they will go so far as Giannis takes them. To average 31, 11 rebounds, 6.5 assists, to still be an incredible rim protector, be great on the perimeter as well. I mean, strikingly efficient. Obviously, we expect nothing less from a guy who averages like 20 points per game in the paint. And of course, the Bucks are looking dominant again. They're figuring things out under Doc Rivers. The defense is coming around. Him and Jokic and Luka are the three best statistical performers of these five. And with that, I bring it now to Nikola Jokic, who I think is going to wind up winning another MVP. I'm not voting on it quite yet, again, because I feel that the narrative should take everything into account, the totality of the season into account. But for the Nuggets to just be so consistent, it really is all Nikola Jokic. I mean, 26, 12 rebounds, damn near 10 assists, great efficiency, great advanced metrics as well. He is the best player in the NBA. He's the best player of this group. He is on a team that is among the best in the league that are probably going to make a deep run in the finals. But there's really nothing more that I can say about Jokic. Just to be on some nerd shit for a little bit, I don't know if the voters take the advanced metrics into account, but that the advanced numbers in conjunction with Jokic's per game numbers, and also again with how great Denver has been, I'm not surprised to see him leading the MVP race at this point. I mean, he's first in PER, he's first in total win shares, he's first in win shares per 48 minutes, which for anyone who is unfamiliar, win shares per 48 minutes is a single game statistical estimation of how much a particular player contributes to winning. Jokic is at .303. The league average is about 100. Obviously, all of these guys are well above average. He's also tops in box plus minus, value over replacement player, all of that super duper nerdy shit. Jokic is tops, but Luka is not far behind. SGA is not far behind. Giannis is not far behind. The only guy who really doesn't make sense in this grouping is Jayson Tatum. And that, again, I cannot stress this enough. That is not because Jayson Tatum is a bad player. It just means that the Celtics are so good around him that they don't require as much from him. So it's like it yeah, Jayson Tatum is like the worst MVP candidate, but that's still being like one of the five best players in the NBA, at least in terms of this. My closing thought is this MVP has to be decided at the end of the regular season. You have to see where everybody sits. Obviously, the final numbers are not going to vary that much, but it's mostly about how these teams finish up the season and what the narrative surrounding them is. Tatum might not be an MVP favorite right now, but if the Celtics go on a run over these final 15 games or whatever it is, and he averages like 40 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists, I think that's going to be enough to vault him into the conversation. Very much like how if Luka maintains these numbers, which he probably will, and Dallas goes on to jump out of the play-in race and secure a playoff spot, I think that would be enough for Luka to win MVP. I think that if the Mavericks finish around a fifth or a sixth seed with Luka averaging damn near 35, 10, and 10, he's going to be the MVP. But as it stands right now, I'm not casting an official vote. If the season were to end today, I think the MVP goes to Nikola Jokic. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. As always, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. If you do any of those three things, you will become my new favorite person. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next one.